its own thing. Welcome back. So what I was going to do now is we want a couple of base type elements that we just to have a consistency across things. And if I just look at some of the basic things that we're going to want in our HUD is we're going to want a button, something that we can click. There'll be different types of buttons, but they're all going to have a same base functionality. And so we'll create a base button type. We're going to want values being displayed to us. They'll be formatted. And so we're going to create a base value type of a widget. We're going to create one that's going to be an attribute output base widget. So it's going to have a text and a value. So those will be kind of like for the primary and vital stats, ones that we can't change directly. We're going to have an attribute input base type, which is where we're going to be adjusting our primary data sets. And so that'll be a text with value and a button. So they'll build on each other. And then we probably want to be able to hover over different parts of our attributes and things and get a description of what it does and maybe on how to improve it or what it affects and stuff like that. And so that might just be a straight up formatted text block. And it might, it'll have its own thing. And those might be again formatted or of different styles depending on what we're going with. So let's start with a button. Okay, so in our UI folder, I'm going to make a subfolder called button. So these will be where our buttons are going to live. You can pluralize it if you want, but I'm not going to. And so what I want to do is right click here, go down to user interface, and nope. I want to use our user widget. So I'm going to go on my user widget and I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say create blueprint class based on my user widget. I'm going to go into blueprints. I'm going to go into UI. I'm going to go into button. I'm going to name this. I'm going to name this my Windows WBP for widget blueprint. And I'm going to call it my button base. And we'll create that. So now we have our parent classes, our HFX user widget. And we've got our widget. We can build our widget here. One thing I want to do is I want to change my view here to be desired, just so that once we got it set, it'll look proper. So here's our button base. We're going to have different sizes of buttons, and so we want things to be able to adjust to that size as we change it. So I'm going to get a size box. I'm going to drag that down and put it into my button base. I'm going to start off by overriding the width and height, and I'm going to set that to 40. Okay, now I can zoom in on that. Inside our size box, well, first I'm going to rename this to be our, I'm going to get rid of this space, size box underscore root. That'll be our root item. And the inside of that, Well, first of all, we're going to be wanting to access that because we're going to want to change, be able to modify these widths and heights when we use it. So I'm going to click that it's variable. And inside our size box, I want a button because that's what the whole thing's about. And so I'm going to drag that inside. So here's our button. I can leave it named button, I think. Don't want it to be button 49 though. I think I'll just name it button. And it will be variable. Inside the button, we're going to want to put some different text on top of it so that people know what the button does. So I'm going to drag a text block into our button. And I'm going to just name that. I think I'll just name that button text. And that's going to be variable as well. I'm going to put a single character in here for now, just of an X, because it'll be a closing button. And so that's just good enough to start here. I'm going to compile that. And let's just go back up to our size box root and set a few things. So we've already overridden our width and height, set it to a certain value. And to be honest, I think that's all we set here at this point for that. In the button class itself, or button object itself, it's set to fill both horizontally and vertically. The padding is 0. We're going to get into the style in a couple different ways. But I think that's, again, all that we're going to do at this point. And then our button text, let me just take a look. So our button text, I'm going to zero out all the padding and have it centered and centered. And we will look at other font settings and things like that once we get into the graph side of things. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now. So compile and save. Coming back up to going up to the graph now. The pre-construct event, in other words, the event that fires when this is in the designer, which is what we want. So we're going to get rid of these two. And I'm going to start with our size box. So I'm going to grab my size box and pull it into the graph, get it. And I want to set the width. So I'm going to go set width override. Okay, we're going to plug that in. The width override, I'm going to drag off of it and promote it to a variable. And I'm going to just call it width. I'm going to call it size box width. So that's one. I'm going to grab the size box root again. I'm going to get it, and I'm going to set height override. Plug that in. And we're going to promote this to a variable. And I'm going to call it size box height. Okay, I'm going to compile that and save. I'm going to go to the size box width. I'm going to set a default value here of 40. And to go to the size box height and do a default size of 40. Okay, compile and save. And so if we go back to our designer view, there's no change because we set it to 40. All right, so those will be fine. So if you went back to your designer and it was 0, it's because you didn't set the default values for these two variables. Now, what we want to do is look at our button. So let's grab our button, pull it out, and get it. And we want to set the style of the button. So we're going to go set style. And that targets the button. And we're going to plug that in. And what we want to be able to do is we need to create a style. So I'm going to drag off of this. And I'm going to say make button style. And so to be able to use this, there's a whole bunch of things that we can plug into it. We want to promote this to a variable. So our normal variable, I'm going to compile and save. So the button style, now we'll have down here in our details panel. Let me pull this up a bit. We can establish and we'll be able to set these whenever we build a button off of the base. So what I want is, I would love to have an image, of a specific type of button. And because, you'll create those from various things. Oops. But what we might end up with to start is maybe just a color. Maybe we just start with something, I don't know, something red. Right? I'll just zero out the blue, so it's all red. I'm going to draw it as an image, and I'm going to compile that and save. And if I go back to the designer, I've got a red button. Okay, there's not much else to it, but that's fine. So what we'll be able to do, though, in the future, once we've created some button images, we'll be able to attach them here, right? And we'll be able to set this as a variable. I'll just grab anything here, this, and we compile and save. Let's go back to my designer. Now I've got this tinted red thing, but we can also, in our use of it, at that point, we would just turn this back to 0 or back to white. And then we would have our basic button image. I've got a letter X on top of it, but that's fine. But anyways, our graphic of our image will be able to be set when we know what we want. I'm just going to clear that, and I'm going to set this back to red. And I'm going to compile and save. So we promoted that to a variable. I'm going to do the same thing for when we're hovering over it. And when we're pressing it, when we're disabling it. We'll probably have some sounds associated with it. I'm thinking when we press it, we're going to want to click. So I'm going to promote that to a variable. And when it hovers over it, maybe it has a sound, right? So we're going to promote that to a variable. And I think that's all I'm going to expose at this point. Okay. Now we can set these just so that we have them. Let's compile. So when we hover over it, so it's normally red when we hover over it, let's say it turns a little bit, let's say it goes yellow, green, something that's different anyways, right? Yeah, we'll go yellow. And when we press it, maybe it'll click green. When it's disabled, um, let's say it goes gray. And the sounds I don't have any sounds right now, I don't think. Is there anything available? Okay, there's a click on a button sound and a hover sound. Um, I'm going to not play anything at this moment. So I'm going to compile and save that. And so now in the designer, when we use it, when we start to simulate it, we'll see some effects, but not right now, I don't think. So that'll set our style. We're going to want to set our text. So let's grab our button text variable that we got and come up off of it and go set text. That's not the one I want. I want to set text where the target is the text object or the text widget. So we're going to plug that in, and I'm going to come off of this and I'm going to promote that to a variable, and I'm going to call that, um, ooh, I don't want to call it button text. uh, Button label. Okay, and I'll compile that, save it, and then I just have something different. I'm going to put a Q there and compile and save. And if I go to my designer, we got a Q. So that's good. One other thing that we're going to probably want to be able to do is have the choice of font and font size and stuff like that. So again, let's grab our button text widget, and off of that, let's set the font. And plug that in. And off of font info, I'm going to come down. I'm going to say make slate font info. And what we want to be able to do here, I'm going to set a size for it. Again, that could be pulled out as a variable if you want. We can have a font family here, so we can promote that to a variable. And sometimes what's nice is to just outline the text of the font a little bit, just to get it have a constant color around it, depending on the image that's behind it, just so that it still is a little more readable. So I'm going to come off the outline settings, and I'm going to say make font outline setting, and I'm going to set an outline size. I suppose we could make it, or we could promote that to a variable maybe, and have that as an outline size. Compile and save that. And I'm going to default that to 1. It's an integer value, so just something. And if we drop this down, I'm going to just make a color, and it's black right now, so I'm going to say that's actually okay. So now if I compile and save, and if I look back at our designer, we should have a letter Q with a black outline around it. Oh, well, I've got this. Okay. So if you've got this, this means that we didn't set our font family because we set that as a variable here. So if I go into my font family, we've got it set to none. So let's go down, like the default was Roboto, right? So if we compile that and go back, now we've got our little outlined Q. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. We'll get into maybe choosing some different font faces, but downloading them from Google Fonts or wherever you might want to get them, or if you have some other ways to be able to pull them in from that side. So that's good. But these will all be exposed in when we create our buttons based off of this button. So we could do that in the next video. Thanks a lot. Okay, one last thing with our button base. Let's put all of our values that we want to be able to format or change on any subclasses of this in their own category so that they're easily defined. So our button is our button. We don't really need to change it. The button text, that's the text thing on our button. We don't need to change it, but we do want to change the size. So let's create a new category here, and we'll call it our button properties. I'm gonna put a space in here, and I'll show you, maybe tell you why. If you don't put a space in here, that's fine as long as you're using the drop down box. But if you end up grabbing the width and dragging it in, it will put it in a category with the space in it, because there's a space up here when it formats the value or the category. Whereas if you put it in without the space and drag it in, now you'll have one with the space and one without the space, which to me is a bug. So I'm going to put the box height in there. Did I want the size box root in there? I don't think so. I'm going to put it back to default. Get it out of there. Don't know why I did that. Button text I don't need in there. I want all of these normal, our hovered, our pressed. I want to be able to not necessarily change them, but I want them to be in that setup, I guess. Because you want to set these more as a kind of on a project base. We'll set it at the base level, and then they'll all be set already across all of the so you have a common UI. And but I want to still be able to find them easily enough. And the disabled one, put that in there. The button label, definitely want that in there. And the font family, I'm starting to wonder whether I want those in there now. The font family. Yeah, I guess. Although again, probably something you want to set constant across your project. Maybe one or two changes, maybe. So maybe we'll leave that. Outline size, yeah, I guess maybe sometimes you don't want it. The button itself and the button text shouldn't be properties that we want to be changing. I'm going to leave those out for now. We can always drag them in later or remove the ones that we don't want in there. I'm going to compile and save that. Um, one of the one of the buttons I'm going to want is a button to show my character stats. It's going to be good for debugging and useful later on as well. So from the base, we're going to create I wanted to make one from this. Did I not? Asset actions. There it goes. Yeah. No. Why don't I have the? Oh, I probably need to go with new um, widget blueprint. And instead of from user widget, I want it from WBP button base. I'm going to select that and I'm going to call this WBP um, I'm going to just call this square. Square button. So all my square buttons are going to start from this. And what I'm after this for is to have a common size again for my square button. So I could leave it at 40. I suppose it was probably it was a good size to start with. That's why I used it. Um, but now we got our different normal hovered, pressed, and disabled color sets here. That's pretty good. I like to be able to see that. Our press sound, our hovered sound. It's kind of funny that those all went in there. I don't remember putting them in there. I didn't, in fact. Button label, though, we'll change that later. And we'll leave the font, we'll leave everything else the same because it's square. And I'm going to compile and save that. Seems a little useless, but it's something that got to be done. And then we'll probably have some wider buttons for um, longer words or something like that like to cancel the quest or to accept the thing. It might need to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to actually just duplicate this one because it's one and the same, because this one came from button base, and so I didn't change anything on it. So I'm going to just duplicate this one, and I'm going to call this one um, wide button, right? Probably not the best words for it, but we're going to open that up. And again, settings in here are going to depend on your particular UI elements. But I'm going to just set this one to 250, right? And the button label might be um, cancel or something, or um, maybe player stats. Maybe that's a little too wide. Um, but maybe that gets kind of want them all to be the similar width. Maybe, I don't know. If they derive from wide button, they'll be 160 by 40. That's okay. Sure, I'll change this 100 times or make 100 more, but that's okay. So now we've got something building off of the base type. And so let's make another folder here. And it might be a waste, but let's call it um, values. And so here I'm going to make another widget blueprint, and I want to base it off of our HFX user widget, because this one's going to be our WBP um, value base, something like that. So that one, again, I'm just trying to figure things out here. Uh, it's going to have some similar functions as the button itself. So we're going to give it a size box. We're going to want to be able to size it up, and we're going to want to have it have some flair to it. So we're going to start with a border on the inside, because borders can contain multiple things. And we're going to maybe have an image for a background. And maybe there will be an image. Maybe I do need it. I do want to be able to add a value, a text value here, and it won't let me do that, right? So I guess I do need that overlay. So I'll do this, I'll wrap this with an overlay. Instead of fill screen, we will say desired, so it wraps it to it fit. So that's our overlay. We'll have a border. We have an image. I'm going to drag that image up on top of the overlay. I want it the same level, I guess. Maybe I'm going to get rid of this border. I'm going to have an image, and I'm going to have a text block that's going to be on my overlay. And I'm going to, in my text block here, I'm going to just put in like a 3-digit number. And I'm going to, for my image, since I don't have any at the moment, let's see, is there anything that's defaulty? Not really. I'm going to just tint it. I'm going to tint it to the blue side of the spectrum, maybe all the way to the blue side of the spectrum, and that's fine. I'm going to get rid of all the padding so that it's full, and the text value, I'm going to pick a different color for it, but I'm going to pick it in the right spot, because that's always a way that messes me up. Color and opacity. Make sure, yeah, that's the one that's changing. So I'm going to pick something blue on blue. Pick whatever colors you like. I'll leave the font family alone. I'm going to put the default font value down to 16, because that's pretty big already. We want to set some values here. For the size box, maybe what's 80 look like? 80 is pretty big. 50, 40 seems pretty small, and by 40 by 20, 40 by 20. This I want to center, and probably a number of things that I don't have quite set right here, but it's UI. Play with it to whatever you like is liking. Um, I'm going to rename this size box um, to our size box, and I'm going to get rid of that space in the middle again, underscore root. And it's going to be a variable because we're going to want to change it for different objects. Our, our overlay, it's set to fill, no padding, and that looks fine. Our image, which right now is just a tint. We're drawing it as an image, that's fine. We're filling it, we have no padding, so I think that's fine. Our text value, we've centered, and it's got no padding, and we've given it a color, and we set a font size, and that looks fine. Compile and save that. Now what we want is in our graph is to do a few similar things. So let's see what I got to go back to my designer, and I'm going to go back to my size box, and I want size box is variable. That's good. And so let's start with that. So here's my size box root. I'm going to come over, bring it here. I'm going to get rid of these two things. And off my size box root, I'm going to come up and set width. Plug that one in. And I'm going to promote this to a variable. Call it size box width. And bring my size box in again, or copy and paste it. Come off of it. Set height. Set height. And we'll come off this to a size box height. And we'll compile that, and we'll set those. I think, what did I set? I'm going to set like 60. And this will be, what was it? 40, 30, 30, I think we said 30. I'll compile that and save. And if I look at the designer, that looks wonderful. And back to my graph. So that's those two things. And I guess one other thing that we're going to want to do is that background image. It's not going to always want to be just a tint. So let's go back to our designer and look at our image thing, see which one needs to be a variable. Yeah, so let's take our image. I'm going to just say this is our background image, and I'm going to make that a variable. And we'll go back to my graph. I'm going to pull out this. And in a similar way, coming off of this, we want to set the brush. And we're going to promote this to a variable, and I'm going to call it the background brush. And if I compile and save that, we can set this to be whatever color we wanted. We had done a shade of blue. If I just, I'm going to maybe just come off of that to a little bit purple, just so that we see a difference from our base one to something that we want. So if I click back to here, now we've got our purple. So that's good. And our other thing that we're going to probably do is have our text set. We want to be able to definitely set the value. So if I go back to my designer, our text box, I'm going to call this, this is our text value. Yeah, text value. It's a text box. It's called text value. Sure, say it's variable. They're not crazy about the name. Compile and save. So that should be exposed when we go to use it. I don't know. Again, all depends on how you want to set your fonts or how much variability you want. So you can create, and we might do that too, create different additional values that can be developed from this. But I think we're going to just leave it at that for now. So that's our value. So now we did our text and a value. So we did a button and a value. Now we could create one with text and a value, calling it our attribute output, which would be a fun one to do. And I'll start another video just for that.